Ready or not, it's back to school, as we all know, for millions of kids across the country right now. And as all parents either shed a tear or do a happy dance, or maybe both, our friend Cenk has a message for you. Mr. Uygur, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dylan. New York Times had a story out today about how they're trying a new set of schools in New York and some other places throughout the country. These schools are led by teachers instead of principals. It's a worthy effort. I like that they're trying something new. Of course, Barack Obama has Race to the Top, which is a whole new way of trying to find schools that work and promote those. Some liberals are against it because they're worried about what it does to public schools. Some conservatives are against it because it's proposed by Barack Obama. And here's my thought on it. Look, yes, people can blame the teachers. They can blame the principals. They can blame the teachers' unions. They could blame the government. They can blame a lot of people. But you know what? We also partly have to blame ourselves. First, let's look at the abysmal numbers to get a sense of how bad it is. For example, in that New York Times story, they talked about the UFT charter school in East New York, Brooklyn. Now, that school has only 22% of last year's 8th graders that passed the test in English, statewide tests in English, and only 13% passed in math. Now, those numbers are terrible. They're abysmal. Now, citywide, it doesn't get much better in New York. Only 37.5% passed in English and 46.3% passed in math. Okay, disaster on top of disaster. Those are totally unacceptable. Now, when you go nationwide, the numbers don't get much better. The USA spends the second most amount of money among developed countries in the world. So it's not that we're not spending enough money, but our result is that we rank 23rd in 15-year-old achievement, which again sucks. Now, there's a long list of countries that are above us in education. You know, you can look at Australia, Belgium, Hong Kong, Switzerland, Czech Republic, and the list goes on and on and on. So look, what can we do to fix this? And how can we get personal improvement here, not just government-wise, but in our own lives? Well, I want to tell you a story about my dad and myself and give you a sense of what you can do. First of all, as somebody who's got kids in school, you know what you should do? You should demand that they get straight A's, that they get a 4.0. That's what my dad demanded of me, and that's what he demanded of himself. So what happened? My dad started in a little town in southeastern Turkey near the Syrian border in Kilis. He had absolutely nothing to his name, and neither did his family. And what they relied on was hard work and education. And from that little town, he wound up getting into a good school because of good grades in Istanbul. He took that, turned it into a good graduate program here in Stevens Institute of Technology in America, and wound up getting great jobs afterwards. Why? Because of education, because he demanded something more of himself, and his family did. And then he instilled that in me, and I'd get a test score of a 98, and he'd tell me where'd the other 2 points go. Now, some people might find that oppressive. I didn't. You know what it told me? It told me that excellence was demanded of me. And it worked. I wound up getting into Wharton Business School, Columbia Law School, and now, you know, I every once in a while substitute on the Dylan Ratigan show. Look at the success we've got.
I was going to say you shouldn't tell your friends that it has resulted in slumming with me, Cenk, but it's a pleasure to see you. And I know you got many other things that you do. So,
yes,
are you finished? Because I do have some questions, but I don't want to interrupt you either.
Just real quick here. Look, you know, we wound up having a very successful show called the Young Turks Online. We're doing well, but some of my classmates wind up becoming United States congressmen, wind up running parts of Google, et cetera, and the list goes on and on. Hedge funds in New York, and they weren't from any rich families. They just got straight A's and went to good schools and got good jobs. And any of you can do that out there, whether you're in New York or you're in Texas or you're in Arkansas. Tell your kids, get straight A's. They can do it. You have to believe in them. And if you believe in them, that's the results you're going to get. And I just want everybody to understand the American dream is still possible, but we've got to expect it of our kids.
So can I say a few things?
Yes.
First of all, thank you so much for that lovely picture of the old Turk.
Yes.
Was that his network debut? There he is.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Yep.
So that makes my day. He looks like a handsome fellow and a happy man. So one thing about the parents, particularly this generation of parents, When you look at the gated communities that are being built in this country where it is against the rules to have children because they don't want to pay taxes for schools, they just want to be a bunch of retired 55-year-olds living on their Wall Street money, not paying for anybody else's education, or when you look at the overall cult of greed that has taken over the generation that is one above our generation, Cenk, do we need to actually blame our parents, not for their failure to be good parents, but for their overindulgence of incredible greed in their decision that while they may have benefited from a good educational system in this country, they'll be goddamned if they're going to pay for anybody else to get a good education in this country?
Look, that's a great point. And when you look at governmental solutions, for example, I grew up in East Brunswick, New Jersey. We had a great public school, and I was the recipient of that. But we would play other schools in football. I was on the football team, and we traveled to Perth Amboy, where they didn't have money to take their books home. Meanwhile, we're building football stadiums with lights so we can play out Friday night. Who cares about Friday night football? We need to be a little bit better than that. We need to make sure that the kids in Perth Amboy or in Brooklyn or wherever else have books that they can take home so that at least they've got a fighting chance. So it's definitely both. It's how we, organize our teaching system, our public schools, which was the reason we built this great country and built this great middle class, but also at home demanding more of our kids and of ourselves.
I agree with you, obviously, but one other problem with with the football stadium and the Friday night bit is if you took that and use it elsewhere, like on teachers or books or anything crazy like that, you take away the profit incentive for the muni bond deal with Goldman Sachs to build the football stadium.
I hadn't thought of that, Dylan.
How am I going to make this
point?
No, I'm not even kidding. We spend more. We're the second biggest spender in the world on education, but yet we rank horribly. Why is that? Well, because we spend all the money on physical structures and bond deals, and that's about it. Anyway, we got to wrap it up. And I appreciate the rant. It's great to see you. And by the way, thank you so much for driving this fine ship last week and so ably, in fact. So, Cenk, thank you so much, not just for today, but for last week as well.
Thank you for having me, Dylan. It's great to see you back in the captain's chair.
Cenk Uygur, Young Turks. Of course, you can always catch more of the Young Turk weekdays from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. East Coast time, live on the web at theyoungturks.com on Cenk's YouTube channel. There are all of the particulars.